your station ID thingy. All right. Anytime you're ready, go ahead and go. Take one.
Hi, this is Terry Tucker from motivationalcheck.com, and you're listening to, oh, shoot. There you go.
That's good. You're supposed to screw up. It's an intentional thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Take two.
And I shouldn't do this because I've been done this like a million times. So this, okay. Here we
It's
go.
all right. It's okay.
All right. Hi, this is Terry Tucker from motivationalcheck.com, and you're listening to Jeff Smith on Vroom Vroom Veer. Listen up.
Perfect. Maybe a little too good, but that's okay. I'll give you a pass. All right. I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Dr. Eric Holsapple. I hope I said that name right.
It's good.
Thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
Oh, it's going great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate being invited on, Jeff.
I appreciate you being here. So you are at livinginthegap.org. Talk a little bit about what's most exciting in your world today. Living in the Gap. I love the background picture of you got on there.
Thank you. Yeah, we run a mindful leadership program. We've just kicked off a cohort. We've got 18 leaders, mindful leaders that are going through a 9-month program, learn how to bring mindfulness into their business.
That's awesome.
And reduce stress and make more money than ever. Hopefully.
Yes.
And I'm also really excited about a book that I've written that's coming out called Profit with Presence.
Perfect.
That is available for pre-sale on Amazon, and it'll be coming out in the first quarter of 2023. That is the same. It kind of highlights what we do at Living in the Gap and how you can live a life of presence. And it doesn't have to be just early in the morning or at night, but it can be all day long. And it can make you really better in business than you are today.
I love it. I love it because this is the first time I've had this connection. Obviously, kind of knew it already. Like mindfulness is sort of like, I don't know, salad. It just makes everything better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, you can't eat too many greens, I don't think. I mean, you can't. Maybe you can. I don't know.
Well, at its base, mindfulness is focus.
Right.
And nothing about focus hurts business. I mean, I think there's a little background conversation that goes on that says, oh, well, I have to take time away from my business to do mindfulness. I'm too busy.
Right.
But I found the opposite is true.
I think
you get more
right.
efficient and more focused and better than ever. So that's my experience.
Did you ever hear that story about, I can't remember who it was. It's a folk tale maybe about Abe Lincoln, I think, where he was in a tree cutting contest. And he stopped every once in a while to sharpen his saw, and he ended up, it seemed like he was wasting time.
Exactly. And he said something that when he spent 90% of the time sharpening and 10% cutting or something like that.
Yeah,
I have heard that.
Yeah.
I have heard that.
Right.
Yeah.
See, so mindfulness is sort of like sharpening your saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It totally is.
Yeah. So, okay. Later on, not now, we're going to talk, you're going to tell us a funny story from one of your first jobs.
Sure.
So looking forward to that. But before we do that, we have to, this is Vroom Vroom Veer. So that means it's almost like that show, This Is Your Life. If anybody's old enough or young enough or, old enough, whatever. Anybody remembers that show? So let's go back in time and talk about what is your earliest memory?
Oh, wow. My earliest memory was certainly one of them was standing on the end of my driveway. My dad was a football coach. I was about 4 and I wanted to go with him. And he just said, no, you're too little. Can't go. And I was a pesky athletic kid. And and then later that night, my dad was on the TV being interviewed. And I just really hit me, that I couldn't go with Dad.
And you were pretty upset about that.
Yeah, it really impacted me. It came up later in my life. Yeah, I wanted to go with that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. It's interesting because probably one of my earliest memories was when I was 4 too. It's like one of the neighbor kids was a year older than me, and the year that he started kindergarten, I was very upset because I wasn't going to have a playmate anymore.
Those are impactful, the older you get, the more you find how much you're impacted by those early experiences.
Yeah.
They really,
and it's like,
really shape you.
It sounds like nothing, but to a 4-year-old, it's a big deal.
It's huge.
It is. Yeah.
It's,
it changes, literally changes your brain. Yeah.
You're trying to make sense of life. And when it doesn't make sense, it impacts you.
Correct.
Yeah.
So where did you grow up?
Dexter, Maine.
Maine.
Yeah, a little town, about 4,000 people. It used to be the home of Dexter Shoe.
Okay.
This isn't anymore. But,
I remember Dexter's.
Yeah. I just came back. I just spent 2 months there this summer. I have a place on the lake there where I grew up, a little town in Dexter.
Nice.
It was really awesome.
So, okay. I've never been to Maine. I've been to some other places on the East Coast. I think like Boston, but that was probably the closest I've got to Maine.
Yeah.
I hear good things about Maine.
It's a great place. Really a great place. Now, the winters are a little long for me. Right. I prefer the summers. The falls are beautiful. The leaf changing, the leaf colors and whatnot. But it's a great place with great people. So great place.
I grew up in Michigan, so I second the notion of I've had enough winter.
I hear you.
My first,
I see your background with the beach and the waves crashing in the palm trees. So
I'm not there.
On. You've moved on.
I'm in Las Vegas.
Mentally,
at least mentally, yes.
Mentally, you've moved on.
Yes, I'm on the beach with a palm tree and a breeze. Right.
Yeah. Good.
All right. So, what was your childhood like? Were you running around in the woods?
Yeah. A lot of the time, I spent a lot of time alone. I remember I was a very athletic kid. We also ran a place where I go in the summer now. We ran a summer camp. It was a boys' camp.
Oh, wow.
When I was really small. And then when I got a little older, it was a campground. That was my, where I worked and collected trash and raked campsites and cleaned toilets and worked at the camp store and those kind of things and met just a tremendous amount of mentors.
Oh, that's great.
And then my school year was mostly sports and getting in trouble.
What we'll get into that later. I'm going to ask you some good getting in trouble stories.
God.
Yeah, I love those. So
I'll have to think what I'm going to filter. Go
ahead. What sort of sports were you into?
I love football, basketball. I wrestled a few years. I love track. I was always a runner.
Gotcha. Yeah. Wow. So lots of different. Very.
And today I love snow skiing, which I learned there.
Okay.
Water skiing, which I learned there. I still snow ski and water ski. I love golf. I learned that later in life, but I still love sports.
Yeah. I have to say, I had a traumatic experience in Pop Warner football. It kind of ruined sports for me for the rest of my life.
Oh, what happened?
I quit. So imagine me, little me. Okay. So my brother sort of ended up with the sporty identity. He was 3 years older than me. And my parents were trying to get me into sports, right? So, but in Pop Warner football, in my little 8-year-old brain, I was thoroughly unprepared to do anything after the word hut. I had no clue what to do, right? There were plays, right? And I was supposed to remember what they meant. I had no clue, right? All I did was, if they did put me in, I was playing on defense somewhere. Don't know where. And I would just run after the quarterback. They're like, oh, okay. All you do is blitz. I'm like, okay, whatever that is. All right. Now, I was just afraid to let my teammates down because I didn't know what to do. Right.
Uh-huh.
So if an adult, anybody really would have said, look, you're 8 years old. It doesn't really matter. Just get out there and have fun. I would have said, oh, okay. I think, right? But nobody said that. They just called me a quitter. And they said, you never get anywhere in life quitting. So I was like, well, we'll find out how that works out because I'm quitting.
It worked out okay, it looks like. Yeah,
I don't.
sound like my baseball was like they put me in different places. I wasn't very good at baseball. I put me at third base. I had to relay my throw to first base to the pitcher because I didn't have an arm.
That sounds a lot like me. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I actually.
I went to track after
Okay.
a while.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
could run.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like what's that? Forrest Gump.
I
could run.
I was a bat boy. My dad was the coach. I liked that. And then in 6th grade, I got recruited to be a manager, which is basically a ball boy for the 6th grade basketball team. And we also did the stat book, right? Which
I
was
did a lot of that kind of stuff.
that
too.
was actually really fun.
Yeah.
And then
Cool.
I think my sporting career ended in freshman football. I did freshman football the whole way through, played very little, which is fine. I did it.
But you did it.
And then I was done. Anyway, so that was great digression. So thanks for sharing. So let's talk a little bit about some of the fun stories when you got in trouble.
Oh gosh. I think some of it just came from that first scene that I said. I was just really looking to fit in.
Okay.
And I got into, back then we drank and smoked and did all kinds of stuff. So I can remember one night, if you want, I can remember one night we were over at a friend's house, and this was the 70s, and the streaking thing was in.
Okay.
So we're over and we're a little bit lit up. It was only 15 or something.
Right.
We're a little bit lit up. And somebody had an idea about this. Why don't we do this streaking? So we go out this friend's house. We run down the street. We're underneath a street light. We run back up, and another buddy locked us out.
Oh,
so
no.
we turned on the light, locked us out. Anyway, the cops came.
Oh, geez. You got busted naked?
We got in trouble. We walked into school Monday morning to a big roar. The whole cafeteria went out. So, and my dad, who was a football coach, and he was actually superintendent of schools at the time.
Oh, geez.
And he said, well, I think you should go trim those pine trees up there in the back of the house today. And he says, you can do that with your clothes off if you like to.
Wow.
I didn't. I had kept my clothes on, but I did go trim pine trees for the day.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch. Yeah. Embarrassing dad, never a good thing.
Oh, well. There's one. That's a pretty good one.
That is a good one. I remember, I think that's like a pretty common thread between people that grew up in small towns, usually up north. So I was in Michigan. We were drinking illegally when we were teenagers as well.
Yeah.
I remember we always would go to the Catholic high school. They had dances every Saturday night, mostly just to make sure all the kids were in one place and they could keep an eye on you, right? We started my parents were out of town, just like you, right? And I started drinking before my buddies came to pick me up to go to the dance. And for whatever reason, they just didn't show up, And, this was before there were cell phones, so I couldn't text anybody. So I got really drunk on, I don't know, whatever booze was in my parents' house, and then decided to walk to this dance. And, being young and dumb, I didn't realize just how drunk I was. So not only did I not make it to the dance, I remember flashes of like falling down on the interstate bridge, right? And tearing a hole in my pants. Yeah. Just that drunk. And then I don't even really remember how I got home. But I'm pretty sure I knocked on some wrong doors more than once.
Oh,
it was awful.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how. I always wondered how we made it through all those times. We did make it somehow for some reason.
I know. You know, if there is a God, he must love me.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about like you. I take it you're a doctor, so that means you probably went to college. So where did you go? Where did you go to college the first time?
I went to undergraduate at the University of Maine in Orono. And then I got an MBA at Colorado State in Fort Collins, close to where I am now. And then I got my doctorate there, all kind of at different times.
Right.
But yeah. But I spent 9 years in college altogether.
So Maine and Colorado.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So was it sort of like, was your undergrad kind of like Animal House? Like lots of parties and keggers and
totally, actually. Yeah, we lived in
Really?
a dorm. We lived in a dorm called Hannibal Hamlin. And
That's
it
great.
was I was just back visiting a friend who was in the nursing home, and he was talking about the time he came to visit us at college. He came to visit me, and there were those couches in the lobby, and people jumping out windows and throwing up. But yes, it was totally Animal House, which was a great movie, by the way. Yeah,
that's great.
and actually, I moved. I got still drinking. I remember I got a DUI sophomore year, and afterwards I said I got to do something different. I moved to Colorado, spent a few years in Colorado.
Okay.
And then went back to finish at Maine.
Okay.
And I came back to Colorado because I loved it. So,
Aha. Yeah, Colorado is pretty awesome.
yeah, I love to snow ski and golf and sun shines. I love Colorado.
That is one thing I have done. So my first Air Force assignment was in northern Japan.
Uh-huh.
And we were like probably 30 minutes drive away from skiing.
Yeah.
So I could get done from work and grab my skis and put them on my car, drive 30 minutes and ski until 10 p.m. It was awesome.
I have a friend that went to Japan skiing a few years ago, so it was great.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
Never done it.
I've never skied anywhere ever in my life. And
I ski a lot. I love to ski.
when we moved from LA in 2017 to Vegas, we finally donated all of our ski stuff because my wife and I both had the old school skis. I guess skis don't look that way anymore.
They don't. They're shorter, fatter, got a little more shape to them.
Right.
We had the long, like 210s. They were little skinny things.
Yeah. I had 190s, I think. Yeah. So I'm glad I didn't show up with my old man skis.
Yeah, I think I ski on like 170s today, and we were 190, 200s, and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, we got really good deals on those too. I think we both got like the Japanese when I was there and we were buying these skis, they were very much brand conscious. So they didn't want to buy anything that was last year's model. So you got really good deals on last year model. I mean, they're still brand new skis. They're just not cool anymore. Anyway. Okay. So it sounds like you had a lot of partying and a lot of fun. So did you quit drinking at some point? It kind of sounded like maybe you did.
I quit drinking way after I should have. I quit drinking about 15 years ago.
Okay. I'm still drinking. So
I practiced for 50 years and then maybe it's time.
I keep telling people that I'm looking forward to not having a federal government job so I can smoke weed instead of drink beer.
There you go.
There's a lot of successful people that smoke weed.
Oh, they totally are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Seth Rogen is the guy that comes to mind. Joe Rogan, big weed advocate.
Bill Maher.
Bill Maher's. Yes. He was going to be my next example.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he super rich.
Yeah.
What is he, like a part owner of a basketball team? And
was baseball. It was
maybe it's baseball.
New York teams, but I think he got out of it. I think he got out of it too.
Oh, he sold out? Okay.
I think he did. Yeah.
Pretty smart.
I'm not positive.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
he is.
Okay. So what was your first job after college or maybe after undergrad?
Well, in between, during my undergrad, and I took that time off, I wrote service I moved to Colorado and tried to get residency. I was going to school here. So I wrote service at an auto dealership.
Okay.
And then within a year, I was promoted to service manager, and I made some pretty good money for a 20-year-old kid.
Wow.
No degree.
A service manager at 20?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Saved some money, and then I went back. It was actually a motivation. I went all the way back, finished my undergraduate, and got all the way through MBA because I disliked it so much that I just said, I'm going to get some education. This is not where I want to spend the rest of my life.
You didn't like the being the service manager?
No, I didn't. It was just, listen, no one was ever happy.
Of course not.
So
That's a lose job.
I was good at it, but
Right.
it was not a happy job.
Right.
I didn't find.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Your service
then
advisors are not happy. The mechanics are not happy. The customers are not happy. Nobody's happy.
Yeah.
Right.
So I had a series of part-time jobs, which we'll talk about a little bit later when you ask me that question about a humorous story.
Okay.
But full time, I got through my MBA and I got a job as an analyst in a real estate development company.
Wow.
Right. Yeah.
What does an analyst in a real estate development company do? I don't know what that is.
We looked at all kinds of projects and ran pro forma numbers on them and, gave advice, here's the good things about the project. Here's the bad things about the project. Here's, we should do it. We shouldn't do it. And then from there, I moved into financing them and learned how to finance real estate projects.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That does sound like a lot more interesting.
It was awesome. Yeah, that first company was a disaster. The owner of the company wasn't very reputable. He taught me a lot of things what not to do. But it opened, so I was there about 18 months or so. It seemed like 5 years.
Right.
But it opened a lot of doors for me. The next job I got from there was with an Australian firm. They were an investor in that company, and I ended up being their North American president.
Wow.
After a few years, and they were coming into the country, and I ran offices in Denver, and they moved me to Los Angeles, Princeton, New Jersey, oversaw an operation in Boston, another operation in Georgia, was, just traveled.
Yeah,
just traveled.
Right. And you got to party with Aussies.
I did. And they partied.
They party. Yes, they do.
I was too good of a fit.
So
it was a great job.
I've got a funny story that relates to a famous Australian.
Great.
Yeah. So there's this guy. His name is Stephen Baxter. He's on the Australian version of Think Tank. So
I know the name, but I can't place him right now. The name sounds familiar. Yeah.
But so I didn't know any of that. That thing that I just said, that he sold a telecom, one of Australia's first telecoms. So he was worth, hundreds of millions of dollars Australian. But he was totally just, he had this nickname. So back in, I want to say like 2005, 2006-ish, that was sort of like the beginning of podcasting. Mm-hmm. And I was the fan of this show, and he was also a fan of this same show. And it was one of these call in, tell a joke kind of scenarios. Mm-hmm. Right. So he was calling in and telling jokes, and then I was calling in and telling jokes. And we're all just fans of this podcast. And the guys that were doing the podcast decided to have a party in their pool in Phoenix, Arizona, at, the guy's backyard, basically. And this Australian shows up, and we get to be friends, right? We know each other for a long time. I have no clue he's a multimillionaire. Didn't even know who he was outside of, the guy from the show, Yeah. Yeah. And then after the show ended, then I was starting my business podcast, the one before this one. And he said, that I could probably be a guest on my show and talk about, how I made my money in my business. And I'm like, okay, tell me about it. And he's like, yeah, well, I sold a telecom for $600,000 or $600 million or something. And I'm like, really? Holy shit. I don't think I can be your friend anymore. But he was just like the world's coolest dude.
Great.
Yeah. And ex-Army, right? Special Forces, I think, for Australia. Yeah. So really cool dude. Anyway, and Aussies really know how to party.
Yes, they do.
Okay. So as I digress, so talk a little bit about how you found meditation and mindfulness.
Yeah. Well, in that job that I had in my 20s, I just traveled. Despite being an athlete at my core, I spent years not doing anything.
Okay.
Other than traveling, eating, drinking.
Right.
I ended up, the company asked me to move to Boston.
Okay.
To help them with a problem company they were having. And so I went in, I finally got settled down a little bit in an apartment, stepped on a scale, and holy gosh, I was 50 pounds over what I thought I should weigh.
Okay.
I weighed something like, I weigh 160 something today. I weighed 210 pounds.
Right.
I was smoking. I was partying too much. I was having some pains.
Right.
And I just remember looking at that and having a real soul moment that said, you know what, if you don't make some changes, you're not going to be around very long. You're not going to live.
Okay.
If you don't make some really wholesome changes.
So like an internal wake up call, as they say.
Yeah. And I didn't really know about meditation or anything, but I started, I quit drinking for a bit.
Right.
I gave notice on the job, said, I'll consult. I'm not, for this, I'm going to start my own business.
Okay.
I have to make some changes. I just can't keep up like this.
Right.
And
working too hard.
Started running again, which I started running. I lost a bunch of weight. I got in, and then I got into yoga. I saw yoga and it just looked like, hey, I think I'll try that. And at the time there wasn't yoga studios that I knew of. It was just, I got a DVD and just started it. So I did yoga for a few years like that. And then my older brother turned me on to meditation. Okay. And it was just like a light bulb switched for me.
So you were already doing yoga.
Yeah, it was my access. It was my access to mindfulness was yoga. It was physical, and I learned to, my breath, and I was amazed my breathing was all screwed up, and I just wasn't, and I just learned about getting into my body, and it was just like so relieving.
Right.
And it also made me so much more aware of my health just naturally. Right. What I was putting in my body and how I was sleeping and all those things. I just loved it. And I've never stopped doing yoga. I'm now a yoga teacher, and I love it.
Yeah. So. I went through as I was in Los Angeles, so I don't know when I started, but for several years, I did yoga on the Air Force Base in San Pedro. And it was free.
Yeah.
And amazing. Yes.
Yeah.
I really, and I also bought a DVD. I think I got, what was it called? Oh, yin yoga. Have you ever heard of yin yoga?
Yeah, I have. I like yin yoga.
Yeah. So
mine was Patricia Walden Iyengar yoga.
Okay.
Yeah, and I watched that same DVD every day, I think, for 3 years. It was great. It was great.
Yeah. I actually recorded the audio of the DVD, and then I would take that and just listen to it. Yeah, because I already knew all the moves. I didn't really need the video anymore, but it was handy, to have the audio cues to know, okay, now I'm going to do this one. And then I didn't have to do a bunch of timers and stuff. But yeah, I love yin yoga. And then I also did, I guess it was like a generic vinyasa. How do you say that?
Vinyasa.
There you go.
Vinyasa, yeah.
Vinyasa, right. Which I've had other instructors, but this instructor was just so cool. Tracy was her name, but she was just constantly giggling and playful. And she made everything like, I think anybody else that would ask me to do some goofy move that I'd never tried before, I probably wouldn't do it. But when she said it, she would be just like, I want to see you try this because I think it'll be hilarious. I could not, right? There was some part of me. Like a great teacher. Exactly, right? There was some part of me that could not resist at that point.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. So love yoga. So did you end up like my intro to meditation was something like Deepak Chopra or maybe Wayne Dyer, one of the two, I don't remember. So just talk about you said your brother. So what was
the attraction was my brother and my dad were very estranged. My dad was a football coach. My oldest brother's a poet.
Okay.
And my older brother grew up with "You will play football," and he didn't really want to.
Okay.
And he had to, and there was that was just one thing, but there was a lot of things, and they were pretty estranged.
Okay.
But I watched my older brother, and my dad didn't change. I watched him meditate, and I just watched him reconcile. Oh, nice. And just have him change, and I just said, "Gosh, I want some of that. That is amazing."
Okay, yeah.
I just watched him transform the relationship all within himself.
Right,
right. And transformed how my dad was because of how he was with it. And
right.
So it was attractive. But my entry was books. I'm a big book guy. My brother recommended some, and I just started on the path of reading books about meditation and I just did it myself for years and years and years.
Right.
And then also, I remember when I first got started, I was playing golf, and the first time I meditated, I said, "This is golf." And it was right after the internet came out, so I started Googling, and I found a guy, Joe Parent, with Zen Golf, and I went to a couple of his workshops, and I worked with him, and he helped me learn meditation.
Wow.
Really, really great. Yeah. And it transformed golf into being, from stressful to something I appreciated and liked to go out and play, and didn't have to score, a great score to actually enjoy myself.
Yes. There you go.
And my golf did improve too.
It will, because you're not hard knuckling it anymore, and you're not beating yourself up anymore. You're just sort of like trying to make it like a Zen thing. It's like
aware. You're just aware.
Just aware.
Just playing. Yeah.
Where's my body when I swing?
And sports was a great entry for the whole thing for me, because then with snow skiing, transformed snow skiing for me. It just became fun just to be in my body and just ski. So.
Before we dig into mindfulness full throttle here, I want to talk a little bit about that health transformation.
Yeah.
Because I went through something similar. I remember when I was still active duty, two of my buddies and I would get together and brew beer. Okay. And this buddy was a really good brewer, and he did the whole grain brewing, right? And I wasn't doing whole grain brewing. So my process was kind of like an hour boil, right? So I didn't have to stand around for 3 hours. He did, right? So I would go to his house and help him with his brews. And I noticed that these two guys could stand up the whole 3 hours, and I couldn't. Okay. So that whole point of that story was there was something wrong with me, because I felt like I really needed to sit down. My feet were just sore. My legs were sore. There was something going on in my body where it was like I was aging prematurely. I didn't know what was going on. But that was just sort of like the first indication to me that like other people can stand longer than me. And they're about the same age, right? So, right? I didn't really figure it out at that point. It was just like a hint. And then later on, I was in Portland, Oregon for this other event. And me and my friends that I was hanging out with, we were walking everywhere. I didn't even have a rental car. So that was when I really realized that, oh my God, there's something really wrong with me.
Gotta make some changes.
I need to make some changes. Yes. So that ended up for me. It was mostly cleaning up my diet, like trying to find all that junk food that's full of preservative and sugar. Right. So, getting that out. And then, it's not like I don't eat it ever. It's just I'm mindful about it when I do it. It's like, okay, I'm going to have this small dose of garbage now. And usually I'm going to have a salad and love my green smoothies and, kind of like a modified Tim Ferriss diet, lots of vegetables, beans, and protein.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was that like for you? What did you do when you cleaned up your diet and your health?
Well, when I first did it, I remember I went on a Nutrisystem thing.
Nice.
I just had to do something that was radical, I thought, because I was so far out of whack. And I lost 40 pounds in 40 days, I think.
Wow. That's awesome.
Crazy. It was crazy. I don't know if it was awesome. Probably be better to be a little more measured, but I'm kind of fanatical, whatever I do, either if it's drinking or dieting or whatever, but that's just how I do stuff.
Gotcha.
And so that was it. And then I just think the mindfulness just makes you more aware of what you put in your body,
Oh, totally.
That you just notice more. Like when our mindfulness programs, I don't have to talk about diet and exercise that much. People just naturally start doing those. Plus diets and everything are so all over the board. Everybody's got a different, whether it's gluten, no gluten,
right?
Paleo, there's thousands of them. But anyway. Right. But I find that just the mindfulness generally makes you more aware of what you're doing. And it also makes you crave to go for those walks and to do those kind of things, to get out and move a little bit,
I really, now that I can walk, right, without feeling all that pain, I love walking.
Yeah,
now,
me too.
I don't walk forever. I'm not one of those crazy people, but like if I want to go out and have a good walk, it'll last, walking around the neighborhood 45 minutes. That's like my favorite walk. I don't get to do it all that often in Vegas until the summer decides to end. But yeah, actually,
And
what we do in Vegas. Go ahead.
I was saying for years for me, it was running.
Right.
You know, I loved to run. I was a track guy and I loved to run. And then I know my daughter, when she was in college, asked me to do a marathon with her. And it was the first time I'd like run 20 miles.
Yes.
And I got injured.
Of course.
And I got and I got injured and I, for a while, couldn't run. And then, then I got old. So now I'm a walker. I never thought I'd be a walker, but I love it. But my wife loves to walk. I love walking with her.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm kind of like anti-run guy now too.
Yeah.
Just because my knees got banged up when I was active duty Air Force, because you're running because you have to. It's part of your job.
Whereas my friend, one of my childhood friends says, I only run when someone's chasing me.
That is my new motto too. I agree. If somebody's chasing me, I hope I can still run.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not fast, but I can keep going.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about how you sort of like pair mindfulness and business, because I think it's amazing. And I think like bringing mindfulness out of woo-woo land into it can make you more money is awesome, because people are motivated by profit, right? It's the best incentive.
Well, the title of my book is Profit with Presence, because I think if we're trying to promote mindfulness and presence in lieu of making money, or in lieu, especially if somebody's a CEO and you go to your shareholders and say, oh, we're not going to make our numbers this year because I'm into mindfulness. They're going to go, what?
Yeah, that's not going to work.
And also it's just not, my experience is that mindfulness is focus. And if you have the right purpose, which is not profit, you need some other purpose, that you'll be more successful.
Right.
And, but no, I would say, initially I was a closet meditator. I would just do my stuff home and I would come into the office, barely noticing people. And then just over time, I changed. I became more approachable. I became more of a people person.
Right.
And people noticed changes in me. And we started opening it up one person at a time. We started a seed group in the office and just would read a book or practice mindfulness. Before I knew it, we started with 1-2 people. Before I knew it, there was, a dozen people around the table at work.
Wow.
Craving something.
Yeah.
And so it just boom, went from one thing to another. When we started with some things that weren't meditation, that were more kind of
yoga,
just mindfulness. No, just mindfulness mindset. I interestingly, I find half the people have an aversion to yoga too. It's like meditation. Just not everybody wants to do yoga.
Right.
I don't know why. For men, I think sometimes it's embarrassing, and I don't know why. But everybody doesn't crave yoga either.
Right.
But there are some just general mindfulness mindset workshops that we did that were awesome.
Okay.
And then later we introduced an 8-week mindfulness course where we had everybody do mindfulness and meditation, and the partners got together and redid our vision statement and came up with a vision statement that I helped facilitate. I didn't come up with it. It was mindfully creating community.
That's awesome.
And that was really the watershed. It gave everybody permission to actually just really work on being mindful. Everybody's on community boards, food bank, the chamber, Habitat, all those kind of things. And they're just I call it the precision effect. When you go into these nonprofits and these things with the intent of really helping, you become so attractive that other people bring you deals all the time.
Right.
They want to work with you.
Yeah.
They want to work with.
I've heard this before. Like Deepak Chopra would say this, and Wayne Dyer would say this.
He's creating affluence. He just wrote another book Deepak did called Abundance, which is great.
Right.
He's great. He's great in these kind of things. He's got some great work.
Yeah, and there's this sort of like, I don't even know what. Like, he takes a lot of crap in the media for being rich spiritual, right?
Yeah.
It's like, who said anything that you can't be both? I say my terminology is affluence increases influence. Totally.
I used to think when I first started reading this that you had to renounce all your possessions and, go sit on a hill in India. And I was resistant to that, Right. I like things. I like my life. I like to go skiing and those kind of
toys.
things.
You like toys. Yes.
Yeah, and I like to go to Maine in the summertime. So as I studied more and learned that's not necessarily true. I could make a bigger difference by having some assets. And I can go into a Habitat meeting and help them build a house physically and donate something. I can do, maybe make a bigger difference. Or we made a big splash at the university, a big endowment that we did. I taught at the university 20 years, but that I couldn't do if I didn't have any assets.
Right.
So I learned that it's a great, I don't know, I hate to call it a business strategy, but it is in some sense of giving. Just give of yourself, and it comes back to you. It comes back to you and back to you and back to you. So
the service, sort of attitude.
And it puts you, the science on gratitude is irrefutable, how it just gives you a mindset change. This is gratitude in action. I call it gratitude on steroids. It's not just mindset change. You're physically out there feeling the difference that you're making. And I don't know if it sounds weird to call it the universe or whatever, mirror neurons just says, when I give, people want to give back.
Totally.
And it just happens. Plus, I say, or it's in Jeff Olson's book, The Slight Edge, you're the product of the 5 people you hang around the most. I want to hang around givers, and they're hanging around these causes. They're trying to solve poverty. They're trying to solve the housing crisis. They're trying to solve homelessness. Right. Get around them, and when you give other givers, just give back. They give you referrals. They do this. They do that. It's just
you're creating like a positive feedback loop.
And the downside is that you're happy and making a difference, and somebody didn't give you a referral. Okay.
Right.
So what?
Right. Yeah.
I'm making a difference, and I'm happy, and here we go. So
some downside, huh?
Yeah. I don't think there is a downside.
No.
To it. And I also think it's the only way capitalism works. I'm a capitalist. I love business. I love entrepreneurship. I love all that. But there's a lot of gaps in it. And the only way I think it really works for everybody is if when we see needs, that we reach out and try to solve those.
Right.
Doesn't mean that I give my house away or my last car or my last dollar, but it means that I care, I have some compassion, and I look at things and try to intentionally solve some of the world's problems. And that's how I think we get out of this mess we're in. And that's how I think capitalism works. And I think capitalism, Schumpeter in 1942 called it creative destruction. How business keeps turning things over and things. I'm promoting this because I think if business really adopts mindfulness, when people get it in business, then they take it home at night, they share it with their family. It goes to the school board, it goes to the church, it goes to the little league team.
Right.
It can just infiltrate the community. A business is the great melting pot in the world.
Yeah.
That's my vision, is that business transforms us out of this.
Well, we can't really count on government.
No. But government's getting all their money from business people, one way or another. So if the business people say, hey, we don't care left or right, just agree, move us down the road.
Right. Actually, if you change the way business is done to be more mindful, I think, it'll infiltrate the government too. And you don't have to worry about it.
I think so.
It'll fix itself. That's awesome.
But the mindset shift that I'm trying to help promote is that it's like I got to take time out from mindfulness. I say, no, you don't. We waste so much time now. If you become more focused, there's all kinds of, and we do a half-hour a day for people for mindfulness. We do yoga in here, half hour, a week. It's great. And people are more productive and happier than ever.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So talk a little bit about living in the gap. Where does that phrase come from? I have an idea, but I want to hear you say it.
Well, and you mentioned Wayne Dyer. He has a pretty good book on the gap. I'm saying getting in the gap. I think the gap is that it's a lot of things, but one thing is that gap. We have like 6,000 thoughts a day, which is a lot. That's an average person. Right. And it's that gap where one thought stops and the next one starts. Can you start making a little disassociation between yourself and your crazy mind? Right. And start noticing your thoughts and start having some spaces. Because what I've learned and what I've experienced myself is the gaps are where peace and joy and harmony are. It's in thought that stress and anxiety live. So if I can start finding those gaps and start noticing when I'm buried in my mind and when I'm not, like you said, can I start noticing when I'm present and when I'm not? Right. That's the joy of it. And I'm lost. I mean, why come in and out of presence on my best day? I mean, I'm not, I'm not running around, enlightened. I'm a crazy person that has found some relief and happiness and honestly, greater success. Yeah. By these principles. So it's that gap.
I love the idea of living in the gap, because it's fun to visit the gap, right? But I like the idea when I saw that living in the gap. Oh, I wish I could live in the gap.
Me too.
But yeah, so I think Wayne Dyer said it's like the gap between stimulus and response, right?
Yeah, that's a gap too. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like you don't necessarily have to go with the knee-jerk response.
Yeah.
And the bigger that gap is, the more time you have to consider. Like maybe your first reaction is a knee jerk and you're like,
mine is.
You're going to freak out. Yeah. Right. Yes.
Yeah.
But maybe you need to walk away and go have a moment, right? That's a win. Because you didn't.
Totally. Or maybe you need to apologize. Or maybe whatever.
Maybe you do explode on the person in front of you and then the gap will come back and you can say, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a place to hang out and just start watching life a little bit unfold, and let loosen our grip just a little bit.
While I was first experimenting with my mindfulness practice, I was trying to meditate on a bus in downtown Los Angeles. And so here I am trying to count my breaths. and I'm noticing that everybody else on this bus, but maybe me and one other person, had like their headphones on, or they were looking at their phone, or both, right? So they're just on the bus, lost in distraction. That's sort of like all but one other person and me. So two people on a whole bus. And I just thought that was amazing. I was like, okay, here is this mundane moment in my life that I am finding thoroughly amazing.
Yeah.
Have you ever had one of those moments? Like,
yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So that's
just calm in the middle of chaos. I was reading something this morning that talked about, even a hurricane's got an eye. It's calm in the middle of chaos.
Right,
the world's chaos, and can you find a little calmness in a little eye?
Yeah,
yeah. That's the gap too.
Yeah, that little moment reminded me of one of the Buddhist stories where the Buddha saw one of his students like hiding right behind a tree because it was in the middle of this gigantic battle, and there was like people were getting killed by swords and arrows, right? And the Buddha just walks up to his student and says, "What are you doing? Get up, do something." He's like, "But master, I'm going to die." He's like, "No, you're not. Come on." It's like, that's the calm in the chaos. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit, like, what does your practice look like today? Like, if you sit down to meditate, what does it look like?
Yeah, it varies over time. I mean, I go to different lengths. I have a number of different practices. I have one, candidly, that's very quick.
Right.
That puts me in the intention of mindfulness. Might be just a couple minutes of stretching. Gratitude's always there. I think gratitude is the low-hanging fruit in the whole thing. It's just like an instant mind shift.
Right.
And also we talk about there's like an after image of that gratitude where you start looking for things to be grateful for rather than if you leave the house irritated. Right. You're kind of looking for things to be irritated. So
yeah, totally.
that one's always in. I journal every day. I journal my dreams. I journal affirmations I use. Okay. And I vary them over time. That works. Meditate. My standard meditation is 20 minutes, but if I'm busy, I do 2. Sure. I do something. Right. And I have a plan that, when chaos hits, I can do something, put my mind in the intention of it. But I love to read 10 pages at least from an inspirational book.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Like one of the Wayne Dyers right.
Something. And I usually read a lot more than that because I love to read.
There you go.
I do something of that, and not a fictional novel usually, but something that is, I say meditation clears my brain out, but then I need to plant seeds of affirmation, gratitude, books that I want to affirm to, affirmation, those kind of things that will train my brain to head me towards where I want to go.
I like it. Okay. So you're actually doing a little bit of the affirmation, sort of like the gratitude feeds on the affirmation, sort of all of that
feeds on each other.
Yeah,
it's all positive.
Right.
I do visualizations.
Okay.
They're just, the science on those is irrefutable, that you can visualize. I do a lot in our workshops on the visualization, just that people are amazed at how happiness is just a mindset. It isn't an accumulation of things.
Right. Right. Yes.
You see
more crap is not going to make you happy.
But
FYI.
we spend all day chasing more crap.
I know. Right.
And so it's a culture. That's our culture. That's our advertising. That's our government. Let's promote GDP. Let's do,
Right.
Let's borrow and spend. Let's make stuff and consume stuff.
Yes.
Let's make it, buy it, consume it.
Yes.
And I love it all, but it's not a purpose. It's not happiness.
Right. That has no end point, really.
And actually, if they find, and I find that if I'm happy, I even do better. I produce more. And who do you want to work with? Someone that's happy or someone that's unhappy? You get more phone calls if you're happy, if you're satisfied versus if you're unsatisfied, or content versus discontent.
Yeah.
People want to call people that make them feel better.
Exactly. Yes.
So
yeah.
I think it's a great, and again, the downside is you're happy, content, and satisfied.
Right. Totally.
So it's not a bad downside.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of this FIRE movement?
FIRE, F-I-R-E?
Yeah. So it stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early.
I have not.
Okay. Well,
makes sense.
It's all about sort of getting off of the consumerism treadmill.
Yeah.
Right. The idea there is, and it's not for you necessarily, but I like it because it sort of like teaches the lesson of that, retail therapy is not really going to make you happy. Right.
Not in the long run. Might for an hour.
For an hour. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's like winning,
or a day.
I tried to
how big it is.
Yeah. I tried to explain that to my wife the other day. Like, winning the Super Bowl might make you feel awesome for a little while. That little while might be a few years. Right? Because that's pretty awesome. It's a really big win, but it's not going to make you happy for the rest of your life. Right?
I say learn to be happy first.
Learn to be happy. Yeah. And I think also, like, nowadays with the environment that we're living in, political, media, business, whatever you want to call it, the soup that we're swimming in now can make you feel like you're going crazy and you're scared and you're sad. I think it's our job. We have a duty to remember to be joyful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not?
We have to. We have to, because so many people have forgotten their duty, I think.
And it's just something automatically that you share. If you have that, you emanate it and you share it with people, and it makes them happier. So the business side of that is they want to be around you. You get more calls.
You get more attractive. Right.
You do.
Yeah.
You do.
So, okay. So as we wrap up, we have to do this story from one of your first jobs that we teased earlier. So let's do that, and then we'll wrap it up.
So one of my first jobs, other than my family business, was I was at the university, and I needed to get a part-time job.
Okay.
So I went out and applied at Kmart for a stock boy's job.
Kmart.
So I went out and went in, and they said, "Well, we know you applied for that job," but they said, "We have an opening in our millinery department, and we need you to take that job for a bit. And if you do that through Christmas, then we'll move you over." So
what's millinery? I don't know what that is.
I didn't know either, but it's ladies' wear.
Oh,
purses, jewelry, and wigs. So I ended up selling. I sold wigs.
Okay.
So I'd be on and I'd be on here. So I'd have to run these blue light specials every hour. Good evening, Kmart shoppers. We have on sale here in your ladies' millinery department, ladies' Dolly 3 wigs, usually $19.95, just $15.50 while that famous blue light flashes. So hurry on over, Kmart shoppers. Take advantage of these fantastic Kmart savings. And I'd be doing that, and my college friends would come in and look at me and laugh. And anyway, it wasn't my ideal of this launching of this great business career. But what I did get out of it was,
I remember the blue light specials.
what I did get out of it was, which is true to this day, is I could sell anything.
Yeah.
I was good at it. I was good at it. They didn't want me to leave.
You had the blue light special voice down.
They didn't want me to leave. I still went in and transferred as a stock boy, but I was not their highest. They didn't like me as much on that because they wanted me to stay in that department because my sales were pretty good. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to take another route.
So for the young folks out there, they actually had a big blue light.
Totally.
And they turned it on, and then everybody in the store, if they were interested in that sale, would go find the blue light.
That's my story, Jeff.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so how can people best get in touch with Dr. Eric Holsapple?
The best is that you can find out all about us on livinginthegap.org. Our website has all our programs on there. You can sign up for our newsletter. There's free resources.
Right.
You can get a book list, a meditation, body scan, some mindful stretching on there.
Yeah.
So that's all in free resources. And you can get information about my upcoming book called Profit with Presence, which is also available for pre-sale on Amazon.
Okay. And
Profit with Presence.
We will we'll link to all of that in the show notes, livinginthegap.org.
Awesome.
Dr. Eric Holsapple, this has been a blast. Can I copy you and spread your seed of mindfulness to the world?
Please.
That'd be great.
Please. I would love it. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed being on your program, so really
all right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. You have a good day.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.